All right, hey everyone, welcome to yet another NCPG webinar. I'm really pleased to be here today to talk about our Agility Grant program and to be joined by some great guests here to help help answer your questions. Things from the general about the scope of the grant to specifics. And Tom and Barbara will also tell you a lot more about all the additional resources and materials we have to help you make a great grant submission, because that's our goal. We want anybody who's interested in these agility grants to be able to put together a fantastic submission and to give us some really tough choices amongst great programs that are going to do incredible work in youth prevention at the ground level. So to help guide this discussion, I will turn it over to our experts. I'm so pleased to be joined here by Tom Bartlett, founder and principal of 20 Degrees. 20 Degrees is a specialist in grants, and they advise organizations like ours, both nonprofits and corporate clients, to help with every aspect of their grant process. And I think you will see their fingerprints on all the, frankly, I think, excellent website and platform materials we've built for those of you. Tom is a longtime leader in this space. He oversaw grants programs himself, which I think shines through in these discussions we've had, Tom, as well as now advising people on how to build these programs and how to apply. And perhaps most importantly, he is a rock skipping enthusiast. But so, Tom, I want to turn it over to you. Barbara Rollins on our staff obviously needs no introduction as our Deputy Director of Advancement, someone who has a long history of working grants herself, as well as applying for grants successfully with us. So, but with that, thank you to Tom and Barbara. Turn it over to you, and I look forward to a great webinar. And thank you so much for helping folks walk through this.
Thank you, Keith. Barbara, do you want to say any words before I jump in?
Well, I might need some introduction. I hope there's some people on here that we haven't met yet. As the goal with the whole program is to support community programs in prevention of problem gambling across the country, including in places that have never had it. So there may be some people who don't know me. So I'll say I am the Deputy Director for Advancement at NCPG. I've been with NCPG about 12 years and been doing fundraising for a lot longer than that. And really thrilled to be working with Tom and his team at 20 Degrees. And while Tom talks, I'm going to turn my camera off just so I don't have to smile the whole time and say nothing. And I'll be back for the questions and answers, which will be in about half an hour, 25 minutes.
Great.
And we are recording this session, so if you have other folks on your team who want to watch this later, just please let them know that we will have it up on our website as well. And if you have questions as we're going along, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A section of Zoom, and we'll address them when we get to the Q&A section. Tom, all yours.
Great. Well, thank you so much to the NCPG team, Keith, to you and Barbara for bringing our firm on to help support this really incredible program and opportunity to drive, as Keith said, dollars to new communities and to new places where prevention programming is really needed. And it's been just a joy to work with the entire staff. So to all those NCPG staff members who are on the call today, who have been both on camera, off camera, behind the scenes supporting this work, our team has been grateful for your partnership. So thank you. I'll go ahead and share my screen right now as we get started. A little bit more just about our firm. I'll just say this so that some of you might be wondering what is with the stone skipping enthusiast comment. I am one actually, and 20 Degrees is actually the ideal angle to skip a rock on water. So for anybody who's wondering if your rock skipping game needs a little tune up, that ideal angle can really help. And when my co-founder and I started our firm, we knew that more organizations just needed a little bit more information and support to find the possibilities for what new revenue and what new grants can make possible. And so our firm has been, as Keith said, supporting organizations like NCPG for the past 4 years in doing just that. I will say this has been one of our favorite programs that we've been supporting, and I'm really excited to share more about the Agility Grants program with you today. So we got a little bit of the overview from Keith, but I want to give you a sense of what we're going to move through today. We're going to give you an overview of the agility grants, how to apply, who is eligible, even want to give some archetypes of potential projects that would be considered. Again, not to model your application after those, but to give you a sense of what's in scope within the pillars and the guidelines. And then some practical how-tos of how to actually apply for the grant, some tips working in the grant portal. For many, it might be the first time using this particular type of software system. So we want to make sure that you feel supported. And then finally, give you some recommendations for how to make your grant really shine. And as Keith said, well, give the review committee some tough decisions to make. And we know that we might not be able to address all the questions, so we certainly wanted, in our presentation format, I should say. And so we wanted to leave time at the end to hear questions from you. So what we would say, again, just to reiterate what Barbara said, as questions come up for you during my presentation, please put them into the Q&A section of the Zoom bar. You'll see that there. We'll be holding all the questions till the end, and we'll be certain to address those that we can get to. So let's give a quick overview of the agility grants. So first, the basics. This program is open to any US-based 501c3 public charity. It is not meant for lobbying or political activities, but any US charity is eligible. So we've gotten some questions of whether or not this is only a program eligible for NCPG state affiliates or chapters or members. And the answer is no. This is a question, or this is an application open for everyone. Some other things to know just about the program. They are one-year grants, but applicants can reapply for funding every year, whether or not a grant was awarded or not. This program is, again, this is our first year launching the program. And we're going to be having 2 rounds of funding each year as we move forward into future years as well, with the goal being a winter disbursement as well as a summer disbursement. And so right now we're in our first round. We do ask applicants to only apply for one of the 2 funding rounds per year. But know that, so as you think about what to put forward, that we certainly know as we think about what the intention of this program is, which, as Keith said, and what we're really trying to channel here is that we're helping to create the proliferation and the spreading of more problem gambling prevention programs across the US. So, we'll talk more about that as we get to the strategy, but we want to just give you some of the basics up top here. We will consider pilot programs. You can combine agility grant funding with other funding sources, and know that we also really do understand that it takes people to deploy and develop programs. So those are not considered administrative expenses as you think about your program, but they do have to be 15% less for any of those admin fees. So that's like overhead, accounting, finance, those kind of things that are non-program related. As we also think about like what we're not going to be making grants to, we're not going to be making grants to this program to treatment programs. We're going to talk more about that distinction in a second. This is for problem gambling prevention programs. We're not going to be providing funds to recovery coaching or overall general wellness. This is also meant to launch and start new activities. So as you think about what programs to put forward, we ask applicants to really think about putting forward ideas that are going to create growth in your programs, not in putting forward a request that basically is to keep the lights on, if you will, for the current programs that you're running. This is about expansion, growth, and new ideas. So just kind of that is the spirit of which the grant funds are going to be made. We also know that as we go through some of the details, I just want to be really clear that the funding can't be used in turn to direct fundraising activities to the applicant organizations. Again, no individuals are eligible. It has to go to a 501c3 organization, and we, again, cannot make any contributions to things that'll be considered lobbying or political activity. Okay, so let's talk a bit about the overall strategy. The agility grants are really about driving more prevention programming and driving innovation as well as the amplification of great initiatives. So this can include new activities, the validation of promising initiatives, or even expanding proven programs. And we've broken this down a bit further into two clear strategies, two clear pillars: the prevention innovation pillar, as we're calling it, and an amplification pillar. The goal in prevention innovation is to get more programs into spaces where prevention programming is not currently there. So that can mean the deployment of new programs, scaling of existing programs, or one of the things we've also heard is we've been really building the program here, and appreciate the NCPG staff and others who have helped us craft the strategy, that there's not a lot of evidence-based programs at the moment. And so we also are opening up possibilities for people to research existing programs. And I say that carefully, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a second, but we are not going to be using this funding to support just the study of certain communities or populations and what those needs might be within those communities. The research component here is really meant to study the efficacy or the effectiveness of an already existing program, so that it can then be, again, expanded, promoted, et cetera. Our amplification pillar is really about increasing community awareness and ensuring that the voices of those who may not have been centered in this conversation, whether it be youth, whether it be other marginalized communities, are part of the messaging and part of the way that we're amplifying and again lifting up communities that have been either hardest hit through some of gambling addiction or other problem gambling related issues. And so we really want to make sure that we are centering those voices in those communities in this work. I would also say this pillar, and we'll talk more about this, is wanting to make sure that the problem gambling community connects with other substance abuse categories and other areas where problem gambling could benefit from alliances, so that we begin to think about a more holistic approach to prevention. And so really thinking about how are some of those other opportunities, again, to collaborate with other organizations so that our problem gambling prevention work is centered in a holistic strategy around preventing youth or other gambling disorders. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, again, more in depth around prevention and innovation. Here, as we said, it's about the development and deployment of new programs. We're going to have a focus on a few key audiences here, including youth and college athletes, marginalized communities, and middle school students, those who are most at risk or who are priority populations for problem gambling. And again, here, what we're also seeking to do is try where we can to really increase the prevalence of evidence-based programs. And so really, we're going to be looking to those that adhere to some of the best practices along the SAMHSA prevention framework. And how are we creating, again, proof of concept pilot programs that can then be scaled into new areas. And again, just want to make sure we're clear. We'll say it a few times here. This funding is not meant to support treatment programs or recovery coaching. This is really about making sure we're directing funds to, again, prevention. So a few examples of what might qualify. First of all, we have two studies here, or two case studies, I should say, that would fall within kind of the realm of our pillar. The first is that we have a university that wants to conduct a research study to assess a nonprofit's prevention program and its effect on a particular population. And the funds that the Agility Grant funds would be used would be to support the study of the efficacy of this prevention program. Again, we're here to study the effectiveness of this program. That's one example of what could fit. A second example of something that could really fit here would be in this other example where education program is successful, it's been running and has a really great track record. And they're seeing that they want to expand their offering now through COVID into more virtual spaces and into other areas where their programming now can reach new places because of again, some of the availability of technology or kind of an iteration of their programming. So again, the funding here would be to scale their program, bring it to new communities, or in some ways modify their program so it can reach new communities. So that's another example of a type of program that would fit within the prevention and innovation pillar. Amplification. So this is our second pillar. Again, a bit more detail of what we're looking for here. Also, I should just note as a kind of a back note here for folks who are following along and have seen some of this, if this looks familiar, that's good. This is a lot of the language that is currently on the website, both on the Agility Grants page on the NCPG website, as well as our grant portal. So you can find all this information there as well. Again, our goal here is to really promote new voices and new thought leaders into the problem gambling conversation and the prevention conversation. We want to lift up new voices and new leaders in the field. And so whether that's done through targeted forums, professional forums, education forums, other education initiatives, or through new collaborations, or through even new media and new awareness building activities, all of those things would fit within this pillar. Again, we are trying to, as we think about how are we centering new voices, we're thinking about how we, again, center those voices that are most at risk, including youth in this conversation and other marginalized communities, to include leaders of color. As this is one of those type of pillars that could lend itself to some marketing-based activities, this is where we just want to be really clear that the funds cannot be used to support fundraising activities for applicant or organizations. This is for promotion of a campaign, an awareness campaign, not for a fundraising initiative. And so we also, again, just want to make sure we're clear here that, again, the programs are to support new initiatives and new activities, not sustainment of current activities. So here's two examples within the amplification pillar of projects that would qualify. The first is a media based nonprofit organization that wants to create a new digital video series highlighting the effects of problem gambling on Black men in the US, with the idea of being able to create greater awareness within the community about some of the harms related to it and prevention opportunities that may exist. And so the funds will be used to support the creation, marketing, and distribution of that video series. The second example is one where it would be funds to support a project that's hosted by, or excuse me, a learning series hosted by a nonprofit that would seek to help incorporate more evidence-based practices into prevention professionals programming. And so the idea here is why it connects is it creates collaboration and also professional learning within the prevention field, so that we have more available resources and awareness of those resources that exist, because I know many of you have been doing a lot of great work and you worked on some of the evidence-based practices that are out there, but we want to see more of that. And we want to ensure that people know these resources do exist and that it's, again, there's more evidence-based programs being implemented in communities where those programs have not yet reached. So those are two examples of projects that would fit within these two pillars. Again, not by any means an exhaustive list of what could fit within these pillars, but we did want to give you all some clarity about the kinds of projects that could possibly fit. And you could think about the many iterations of this. And again, the way that I would distill all of this is that this is going to be something that if you go back to the pillar strategy, one of the things that I would just offer is within the prevention innovation pillar, think about how are we bringing new prevention programs to places where that programming hasn't been? How can we scale an existing program to reach new communities and new audiences? How can we measure the effectiveness of a program? And in the amplification pillar, really thinking about how are we creating greater awareness and centering the voices of those who have been most affected or are most at risk for problem gambling, as we think about how to increase awareness about some of the issues and also about prevention opportunities that may be possible. Okay. So let's go a bit through the timeline here. We're currently in the middle of the application period. Our portal opened at the end of January and will run through the Tuesday following President's Day weekend. Our grant review then will take part shortly thereafter, with our hopeful awards and notification to all applicants by the end of March. So this is a tight turnaround, and we know that, but it is something that we feel will give us a chance to begin to tell a great story at the onset of the month, or excuse me, at the onset of the year during a problem gambling awareness month that I think many of us see as a great way to tell really good stories happening across the country about some of these prospective projects. Okay, so that's a bit about the strategy. We want to now, and I know it's probably created a lot of questions that many of you might have. I see that the sun is on me here. Apologies for that. And we now want to give you a sense of how to actually apply for the grant. So if you have additional questions that those that prior part of the presentation brought up for you all, please put those into the Q&A section. We will address those once we go through kind of how to apply and the nuts and bolts of our portal. So just so everyone is aware, you can find the login portal in a few different places. We have the direct link here at the bottom of the screen. This is the URL that will take you directly to the grants portal. You can also find this on the NCPG website. If you go to the list of activities and programs, and I may not be using exactly the right lexicon there, Barbara and Kate can probably correct me, but you'll see that agility grants is a tab or a part of the list that you can select, and it will give you some background information and then a direct, again, link into our grants portal here. A couple of just tips as you go to the grant portal. You will have to create a login account in order to apply for the grant. For those who are already members or have interacted with NCPG in the past, you will want to use the Your Membership login credentials, or the YM login credentials. That way then you will be able to have an account, and basically all that information will pre-populate as you move through the grant application experience. So if you already have an account, hopefully it's going to speed things up for you. If you have trouble accessing the site or logging on, I know for some, there were a few questions that came up in the beginning of the process. We have now created a login guide that's on the homepage of the web portal for you, or the grant portal for you. We would refer you to that. And if you still are having issues, that's what we're here to do. And to help, please contact us. We are happy to help you. We don't want access to the site to be the barrier for your application. As you get onto the portal, again, scroll down to the bottom of that first page, you will see, again, a lot of the language that we just covered is on the page. But at the bottom of that screen, as you scroll down, you'll see a chance to then log into and start an application. So go ahead, that is where you should select. A couple of other just tips we want to give you, again, just as you're completing this application. You're first going to come into contact with an eligibility screen and a questionnaire. So if you answer the questions in the correct way, meaning you're a U.S. charity, a few other questions that we're asking, you then will be asked to put in your primary contact information into the contact application here. A couple of notes here, just because I know that the questions have come up even in some of the office hours I've held with a few of you. The primary contact, think of it as the person that, if a question were to arise with the application, this is the person the review committee should reach out to answer any questions. That's the person that we want to see in this listed here. So that can be the same person who has the user profile with the application that you created, when you first came out into the grant portal. It could be somebody else. and we leave that to you all to determine who the best person or representative of your organization is to field questions, but that's what you should do. You can add collaborators. So if you want to bring other people into the submission process and have them add to your application, there's a button right here at the top that's there throughout your application experience that you will see with the managed collaborators. Click on that and you can just type in their name and their email address, and they will get an invitation to come join and make edits to your application. They will not be able to submit the application, but they will be able to add things to it. A couple other things too that I think are just helpful for you to know, for your knowledge as you complete the application. There's these really nifty navigation bars here. So you can move back and forth throughout the application without having to hit save and next at the bottom of every page. You'll see that if you've been in the grant portal. The good news is that the portal actually saves, it auto saves for you. So as you fill in information, don't worry. We know, having been through a lot of grant portals myself, I know that sometimes there's a fear that, oh my gosh, if I don't get this saved, I'm going to lose the entire body of work I've just spent an hour completing. The good news is we've selected a system that prevents that type of catastrophic thing from happening. It will autosave for you. And again, hopefully this quick navigation allows you to kind of move quickly through. Also, if you're just kind of coming into the application for the first time, a piece of advice I would give you is scroll through this top navigation bar to see the questions that are being asked, so you can begin to prepare information. Couple other things I would just say as you look through the application, pay attention to the kind of prompts or the additional language underneath each of the header questions. It gives you a bit of insight into what the review panel is going to be looking for and what, again, we're going to be evaluating against. So I would say another hint is just to read that information carefully and try to respond to it as best you can. The other thing I'll say is, and I spent almost 15 years at a corporate foundation doing grant making work, and one of the things that I believe strongly in from that experience, and also that we try to bring in here, is to create an application that is not overly onerous. We also know that this program, as intended, is meant to get more dollars to community-based organizations and community-level actors. The application can't be the reason that those dollars don't get to ground. And so what I hope you also hear from us and from on behalf of the NCPG team is a real intention to make this application experience one that is easy for anyone to complete, that you do not need a professional grant writer to complete. And I hope that, and we'll look forward to your feedback about that experience, but that was how we intentionally built the application. Couple of recommendations that we would just offer you as we kind of give you some final thoughts. The application is going to close at midnight. It's like, Cinderella, once the clock strikes midnight, like it's gone. So please don't leave anything to the last minute. If you have some type of unexpected tech issue, like we don't want that to be a reason you can't get the grant in. The portal will not accept applications afterward, and we're not taking submissions outside the portal. So really encourage you all, please submit the applications early if you can. Don't apply for general operating support. If you have a program that you think is going to be a great fit with what we're trying to do here, that's what we're asking you to put forward. But please, we have seasoned grant makers here. We know when we smell a general operating grant request. So this is a program related opportunity, and just would encourage you to approach it that way. We also have, as you may have seen, our general guidance for the size of the grants is anywhere between $20,000 to $40,000. Again, these are one-year grants, so it's $20,000 to $40,000 that's intended to be spent in that year. That's the intention. You can certainly if we can, yeah. So that's the intention. And really think about too, we hope to be able to fund at the full requested amount, but that's why we offer the range. And so if you apply for a $40,000 grant, there is a possibility that we won't be able to fully fund the full amount. And so that's why we also say it's okay for the Agility Grant funding to be paired with other funding sources. So if you have other partners or other funders that you're working with, maybe to fund elements of a broader project that the Agility Grants funding couldn't support, that could be one way to think about it. But we do just say, again, be prepared. This is going to be a competitive process. We will do, for those awards that we can make, do what we can to fulfill the request, but just, duty to warn here. I would also say a couple of other thoughts as we think about this. Really think about the impact the program is going to have. And stepping back to the broader intention of this program is really about helping more problem gambling prevention programs reaching new audiences and new communities. How being able to tell the story of how your program and your project will do just that is going to be really critical. The final thing I would say is make sure that you differentiate your program. So as you think about the application and what you're going to put forward, make sure that in the narrative, it's really clear and comes out why your program is different, why it's special, and what about this moment right now makes your program uniquely able to kind of like move the needle, if you will, to really drive a difference and spread more programming. We're going to look for those key things. Final thoughts before we head to the Q&A. We know, again, we're going to try and get to as many of the questions as we can here in a moment. But if you still have more questions, we have office hours available. Some of you have already taken us up on that. Reach out to the email here if you need it. And the office hour 2 link is on the NCPG webpage. So if you don't have it, maybe, I don't know if Kate or Barbara can put it in the chat, but we can get that link so you all can schedule time with our team if you have any other questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom. And we'll welcome Barbara back too to help moderate. There are, as we surmised, a ton of questions, but that's good. And that's what this is here for. So I'll start them off in 1 second, but let me just say again, on behalf of the National Council, to thank you and your team. We stood this program up in a matter of months, and frankly, I think most of us thought that timeline was pretty crazy, but we couldn't have done it without you. And we did it, and we met our benchmarks. And so we're really pleased to be offering this opportunity to the field. So thank you, Tom. Thank you so much.
Thank
you to Sarah, to Lee, to everybody on your side as well.
Thank you.
Keith, I have a bunch of questions teed up here. Do you want me to lead off with that?
Yeah. One more thing I want to say though, real quickly, is that I know we've got 60-something people on this webinar. There's a lot of people we've been talking to. We are very, very, very hyper cognizant of the fact that, and we hope you understand this as well. We know this cannot be all things to all people. We have to make some very, very deliberate and I think probably tough choices around what we fund. There's likely going to be a lot of programs that are absolutely fantastic that we can't fund. The tragedy of this is the only national source of youth prevention grants. There should be a lot more. I hope we understand that very well. I hope you understand as well that this funding is limited. We have to make some choices about trying to put money where we think it is going to go well, but that there's a whole lot of stuff that we can't do. And as Tom explained from the outset, we set some guidelines and parameters around this grants. There are certainly great ongoing projects or stuff that is, general administration projects or research projects or other prevention focused things that, had we the money and had we the time, we would love to do. So I just want to, again, make sure everybody realizes we don't see this as solving every need in the field. We hope you don't either. We know that's not the expectation, but just to level set for folks, we are where we are, and we're doing as much as we can with these grants. And we hope to have additional funds in future years, but we have to start with where we are now. So just keeping that in mind. Yeah, Barbara, I'll turn it over to you for questions. I wanted to get Jamie's in first because I don't think that's one that we had seen. So Jamie Costello from the fabulous state of New York is asking, can some of the funding be used to pay a subcontractor, consultant for evaluation or temporary staff, for example? I hadn't seen that come up before, so I wanted to throw that out and then turn it over to Barbara.
Yeah. Do you want me to take it, Barbara?
Please, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, so the short answer is yes. The funding can be used for that purpose. We know that for a lot of organizations that may not have full-time staff, that we have to get creative for how we deploy and launch programs. So putting the money toward contractors is okay. Again, same rules would apply for what we said about the overhead costs right before about those staff dollars that are directly tied to the creation and launch of a program are not considered administrative expenses, but anything else that is not related to the direct deployment or creation of the program is going to be an administrative expense. So
thank you, Tom. And again, these are some answers. We tried to have a really broad gateway. There might be some stuff that we've neither said you can't do it or you must do it. And some of that is going to fall upon the reviewers to say, or how is this grant, are you demonstrating that you're maximizing the value of this consultant? And if you can make a good case, as Tom said earlier, we encourage you to make that case, but understand it's a very competitive process. So if you think it might be a little iffy or edgy, certainly talk to us as well. But going into it, the stronger case you make, the easier it is for us to say yes. And so when you have questions or when there's stuff that might not exactly fit, well, that may be a sign that maybe this first round of the agility grant is not necessarily the best fit for you. Or if you're trying between pillars,
Here's a couple easy answers. I think some of these might have been answered after they were asked, but just to review real quickly, what is the award amount for each grant recipient? We are expecting $20,000 to $40,000 per recipient, and there's, as Tom said, there's a range there to allow for individual organizations and what you want to do, what you can do. But that we wanted to have a range that would move the needle, and so to not be like $2,000. Another easy question: what is the timeline for the next granting round? It is later in the year. We have not set the dates yet. We're actually, I'm a big believer in incremental improvement. And this is our first whack at this. So we're going to see how this goes and then make improvements before we open up the next round. But it is intended to be within this calendar year. Tom, question for you. When submitting a proposal for a new program, how much detail needs to be confirmed about the program in the application?
it is a great question. So, we purposely made allowance for pilot programs to be eligible. And so I think there needs to be enough to say that the program will launch within the prospective grant year. And what I would say though is that that I would use that kind of as the litmus test, is like a year from now, what story can you tell about the program and what it did? I think we're not looking for this funding to go toward pre-study or any type of like landscape assessment of particular needs. We're looking for the funding to go really target the follow-on work that would come after that assessment was done, so that we have funding directed again to the solution, the programming that will follow on.
And that brings up another question that I would be asking if I were an attendee, which is about reporting requirements. That's something that we haven't built out, but it would be also an online form, and we will require a report at least at the end of your grant year. Somebody else did ask about the start date and the end date. I'm not sure if you meant about the funding of the program or your own program that receives the funding, but basically after you receive the funding, we're expecting that you would spend it within the next year, but I don't think we're going to count that down to the minute and the day.
Right. I mean,
Um,
I think the way to say that too is that the awards are being made annually, and they're intended to be, the funds are intended to be spent annually. And if the program were to move beyond that period, I think there would be certainly an expectation of no reapplication for additional funding until completion. But the goal and intention is certainly to complete the program and provide a report back within the year. It's the hope.
Not the calendar year, within 12 months, right?
Correct. 12 months post-award. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's another one. If a program is not funded in this round, can organizations reapply in the summer? And is the same program eligible for resubmission, or does it need to be a new program?
It's a good question. So at the moment, what we are saying is that we'd like folks to pick one of the 2 funding rounds per year to apply. So would say that if you apply now, that you don't reapply and come later, we will certainly evaluate that as submissions come in and communicate to everybody should that change. But the intention right now is that we do not, that we're asking people to pick one of the rounds. I think the question about can similar projects be put forward again, I leave that to the respondent and to the applicant. I mean, if it didn't work the first time, I don't know, there could be a case to be made that, you might want to try something different, unless you get specific guidance from the review committee otherwise. But that would be my response back.
Another question was, so that was about applying twice in the same year. In any given round, can you, should you not apply in more than one pillar?
Yeah, thank you for that additional question. And I apologize, we didn't state this earlier. Yes, we are asking folks to pick one of 2 pillars. So we're only asking to receive 1 application per organization. So do select one of the 2 pillars and make your submission accordingly.
Okay. Here's an easy one. Where can we get a copy of the slides, and where will the webinar recording be posted? We will send out a copy of the slides as they are right now to people who are attending today's webinar. I think we would have to do some editing in order to put it on the website. So we'll talk about that amongst ourselves. The webinar recording will also be posted on the web page for the Agility grants, which has been posted a couple of times here in the chat and the Q&A, but it's ncpgambling.org. And then you go to the programs and resources, hover over programs and resources on that page, and then choose programs and then Agility. But there is also a link in the Q&A in the chat here. Most likely you can also just Google Agility grants. I haven't seen that name come up anywhere else. So I'm proud of picking that name.
We have to give Barbara a lot of credit for that name. That was a branding thing that frankly our funder, the NFL, liked very much. So that was and again, I think as Tom said and as Barbara said too, we apply for grants. So we tried to make this process as painless as easy as possible. We tried to think about our own experience in grant seeking. But this is our first time of dispersing grants. And so we're learning a lot of lessons too on being on the other side of the table this time.
Another question about budgets and budget narrative. Is there a layout that we are requiring? Do we have to have a budget narrative going along with the budget? What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, great question. So we have a preference to receive the budget in an Excel file if possible. And I do think that a description of so there is a section in the application to kind of describe the budget and the use of funds. Whether or not you want to turn that into a full-on budget narrative, I know that means that is a specific meaning. And so going back to what Keith just said, we want this process to not be overly onerous. So it would just say, use the budget description section to kind of outline the use of funds and any other notes. If you feel comfortable and are able to add a real budget narrative, please do that. But we are looking for the budget to be submitted in an Excel format.
And a halfway thing that I have sometimes done is on my Excel budget, I have a column for notes. So if you feel like you don't really need to write a paragraph about this, but you don't want to have just numbers, you can write in a note that says, this is a contractor, this is a full-time employee, something like that. If you feel you want to provide more explanation, I think that would probably be okay. Another question, will there be a scoring rubric and will it be available to applicants prior to submission?
Yeah, great question. There will be, we're not sharing it publicly. We will be using a scoring guide to help provide some direction to the review panel. So that is something that maybe in the future we can visit Barbara about publishing in future rounds, but for now we will not be sharing.
Sorry, scrolling down. How do you foresee these projects aligning with or fitting into the SAMHSA prevention framework?
That's a good question. So there's many layers, and I don't know if Keith, if you want to speak to this, or if anyone else on the team does, I can start us off. I mean, there's many layers to the framework, and so we know that the SAMHSA framework is kind of the preeminent overview and guide for the field. So moving through the steps and using again that as the backbone for how to kind of like build a framework for you, or build an outline for your program would be what I would suggest. It's a bit more of I think there's a lot more that we could go into there. We can do it in an office hour if someone wants to schedule to talk more. I don't know if you want to add more to that Keith.
Yeah, sure. Tom, it's something we thought about a lot. We're obviously very cognizant of the SAMHSA prevention framework. The reviewers will be as well. So I think it is probably helpful to note in your narrative where your program fits in with the SAMHSA prevention framework. But we're not going to require to use. We're not going to say you have to use this particular pillar of the SAMHSA prevention framework. Obviously, there's some stuff that is probably not really appropriate for the agility grants, but otherwise, we did want to give people leeway. I think it's good to have that theoretical fundamental basis to be able to cite back that this program in the innovation pillar, is based on the learnings that you have under SAMHSA prevention framework number 3. So feel free to get. I think that bolsters your case, but we're not requiring you to link it to a specific part, and we're not requiring your program to be based specifically on the SAMHSA prevention framework.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question. Can organizations collaborate and apply as one entity?
Yes, I love that. So one of the things that again we hope is that yes, that people feel and see an opportunity to do just that. We are looking for kind of at the heart as we thought about building the strategy, just to kind of unpack a bit of it. Like one of the things that we know NCPG does really well, which is part of I think why the NFL and other funders have wanted to contribute to the Agility Grants program, is as a convener and collaborator. And so that is an ethos that is in the grant program, particularly across, well, whether it's even specifically called out in the amplification pillar, but even in the prevention innovation, collaborations are certainly something that we would encourage. I would say that the grant amount is still going to be the same. So, it just because there's 2 organizations doesn't mean the award doubles, but yeah, I think the collaboration is a really great idea.
Yeah, and that may be something you want to lean into. So I'm not saying that yes, only people that collaborate are going to get these grants, but I do think that's very much something that we can accommodate, and that's something that if being able to demonstrate that you've got partners, is I think very, very helpful as we're reviewing what we think will be a lot of applications.
And the fundraiser in me says, how do I do that application? So Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the project is a collaboration, I think we want one application that names both organizations, but as one application, and the actual transfer of funds would go to one of those entities. So you would have any collaborating entities would have to make an agreement between themselves about. Sorry, that's not part of the grant.
No, it's okay.
As an administrator.
No, it's okay. It's right. Yeah, I mean, Yeah, I think just to kind of like summarize, yeah, exactly. I would say the grant awards will be made to one entity, and so working out between the two or however many partners of how those funds to be split is going to be important. Certainly important as part of the budget that you would submit. And I think in the project narrative, being really clear that there's more than one entity that will be part of the project.
We've had a number of questions about how many grants do we expect to award. This year, we're talking probably 6 to 12. It depends on the applications that come in, frankly, and what the reviewers have to say. But we were expecting 6 to 12. I will say this is a 3-year grant from the NFL Foundation, not the NFL, sorry, Keith, the NFL Foundation. And we built into that more funds will be available next year. A larger amount will be available next year. But for this year, we're figuring 6 to 12 grants.
And just to be clear, one other thing, that's not binding from here on out. If we do 4 and 4, if we do 6 this round, the next round may be a little bit different. Next year may be a little bit different. So please, this is not, we're doing a lot of learning, and we want to be adaptive. We need to hear from the field, and we will certainly, make changes as is necessary. So yes, John, it's 6 to the range is roughly 6 to 12. I think 8 is a good middle for this round. And then we'll have a second round this year before the end of the year. And there may again be another 6 to 12 grants available in the second round at the end of this year. Or there, it may be a smaller, it may be a larger number. Again, there's still, we have some flexibility. I know that's sometimes a little bit frustrating for folks that we can't necessarily tell you exactly what the answer is, but we are trying to be very responsive, and we are new at this. So we're giving ourselves a little bit of permission to go where the field is.
Here's a fun question. How do you define prevention?
Yes. And this does, so I can take this, Tom. This harkens back to the prevention framework. So we are looking for you to tell us what it is you're trying to do. So if you want to submit a grant proposal to do an abstinence-based program, to go in and teach kids, not to gamble using abstinence-based theory and messaging, that's fine. If you want to submit a grant to talk to kids about harm minimization or moderation, that's fine too. If you want to submit a prevention grant to talk to young adults about whatever your theory of change is. So again, make a good case. We've left the gate really, really broad, and there are many different types of prevention messages that you could do. You could pitch, and we want to give as many people an opportunity to submit these grants as possible. So I guess that's the way to answer it, John. Yeah.
We also have Kate just dropped the link again for the scheduling office hours. Because I know we have a lot of questions, and we only have another 10 minutes, 5 minutes. So please do schedule yourself an office hour appointment to get more of your questions answered. Anything you want to say in wrapping up here, Keith or Tom?
Again, maybe go, and then Keith, if you want to close.
Sure.
Yeah, so a couple things I would just offer is just going back to, I think what Keith, you were just getting at in that last response, and I really want to commend the NCPG team for this. I think there's a real spirit of moving through this first process and first grant disbursement with humility, and a desire to be responsive to both the applications that come in, but also to where the field is seeing need and where there's opportunity. And so I think kind of moving with that spirit is something that has really been at the heart of how we've tried to roll out the program, and how we try to be really accessible in a number of different ways, to the office hours, to sharing this webinar, to making the grant application itself something that isn't overly burdensome. And so I would just offer that we would really appreciate your feedback through this process if you feel that we haven't lived up to that, but know that's how we're trying to lean into this. And so welcome your thoughts and your feedback on how the experience has been for you. The last thing I would just say is you consider submitting is that this really is a unique opportunity, I think, to really, again, move dollars to community-based actors and to organizations that may not have typically received funding. We are purposely trying to take the intention behind the NFL and other funders who have put money into NFL Foundation, Barbara, that moved money into this program, that they know that NCPG has a much better ability to get to the ground, to get to the really good work happening in communities across the US. So that's the spirit by which we're also going to be really trying to make the grant awards. How is this reaching new communities? At the end of the day, if you have one litmus test that you're going to try and hold your grant to, how are you helping bring a new prevention program to a community that has not had it previously? Like, that would be the thing that I hope you can answer in your application. And I wish you all really good luck. Thank you so much for your interest. It's been a joy to be here with you today. Maybe I'll see some of you in office hours. And again, just thank you for your interest. Keith.
Yeah, thank you again, Tom. It's really been a pleasure. This is the opportunity to put this program together is something that those of us involved in the National Council have thought about for years and decades in many cases. And so we know there's a lot of pent-up energy and enthusiasm and need. And we hope that should these programs be successful, that there will be other funders and donors attracted to this, that we will take these models that you create, those people on this webinar, that you create and then help replicate them across the country. So we see this as the start. And maybe in a few years, we'll see it as a tipping point when we really started to invest in prevention, and we really started to untangle the specifics of gambling addiction prevention. So I hope you understand, we know that we are early in this process. We know that these grants can't go as far as they would like to go. They can't go as deep as we would like them to go. We are where we are, but doing
this year.
Yeah, this year. But doing that, even doing that is a step forward, and that together, we're gonna keep pushing this thing out and rolling it forward. So it's really exciting for us, and we hope that we appreciate your patience, and we hope that there's a lot of folks who are interested, and we're sort of apologize in advance that we're not going to be able to fund everyone's project, even some really good projects, but that the seeds we plant now, I think, will grow. And so it's a really exciting moment in time for us, and we're so glad to be here on this journey with you.
We're really excited to see all these applications, and I'm thrilled to have had over 60 or more attendees today. So thank you all for spending the time to join us.
Yes.
And we look forward to seeing you in the portal.
That's right. All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks again.
Bye, everyone.